Y'all are not going to believe this. We've had black women for Harris. We've had black men for Harris, white women, white men for Harris. We've had natives for Harris, South Asians for Harris. We had LGBTQIA for Harris. And now it is being reported that the group Republicans for Harris has launched as of today. Today, Harris for President is launching Republicans for Harris, a grassroots organizing program to further outreach efforts to the millions of Republican voters who continue to reject the chaos, division, and violence of Donald Trump and his Project 2025 agenda. This program will leverage principal travel, on the ground organizing efforts, and paid media to reach, persuade, and mobilize Republican voters. And if you read down further, these are the Republicans, prominent Republicans, who are going to be working with the Harris campaign on this new group, Republicans for Harris. This is so freaking exciting. Kamala Harris is bringing people together. I am loving it. Also, I saw this floating around over on social media.
The former president went down. He actually spoke in the same arena that Kamala Harris did earlier in the week. And he certainly had his attack lines, many of them on Kamala Harris. But he also went after the sitting governor, who happens to be a Republican. Let's listen.
Your governor, Kemp, and Raffensperger are doing everything possible to make 2024 difficult for Republicans to win. Kemp is very bad for the Republican Party. He wouldn't do anything. He could have ended the travesty with a phone call because I did nothing wrong.
Kemp is your former boss.
We served together for sure. Brian Kemp has forgotten more about being a Republican than Donald Trump knows about being a Republican. Brad Raffensperger and myself included, we have done more for the conservative cause than Donald Trump has ever done. This is now starting to not be Donald Trump's problem. This is starting to be the Republican Party's problem. We have to call him out for what he is. He's a felonious thug who walks down the street and throws sucker punches at people like Brian Kemp, like African-American journalists, like John McCain, and the list goes on and on and on again. And the Republican Party is content sitting across the street watching it happen and not calling him out, not jumping into that fight and saying, you are wrong for us. This 10% in the middle, which now feels like it's growing to be bigger than 10% in the middle, that's going to decide this election, are paying attention. And I've never seen a human be more self-destructive than Donald Trump the last 2 weeks. He continues to do it over and over and over again. And when he loses, and the Republican Party finally catches their breath and wakes up and says, we need a GOP 2.0, there'll be some people around, but it's going to take time to fix. My hope is that Kamala Harris ends up being a blank canvas for us to be able to help work these new policies and new ideas into place. That's the risk I'm taking as a Republican voting for Kamala Harris.
That is former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan of the state of Georgia. He is a diehard, old school Republican. And he just said that he is voting for Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, Brian Kemp, the governor of this state, and Brad Raffensperger, who is the Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, are playing shenanigans to disenfranchise voters here in the state. This is why Donald Trump attacking him at that rally on yesterday, I love that for Brian Kemp. It didn't end at the rally. He took it over to Truth Social. Here's what Donald Trump said over on Truth Social. I got this from PoliAlert.com. Brad Raffensperger has to do his job and make sure this election is not stolen. Brian Kemp should focus his efforts on fighting crime, not fighting unity in the Republican Party. His crime rate in Georgia is terrible. This is a lie. His crime rate in Atlanta is the worst. That is a lie. And his economy is average. He should be seeking unity. not retribution, especially against the man that got him the nomination through endorsement and without whom he could never have beaten Stacey Abrams. Now, this is possibly true. He and his wife didn't think he could win. I said, I'm telling you, you're going to win. Then he won. He was happy, and his wife said, quote, "Thank you, sir. We'll never be able to make it up to you." End quote. Now she says she won't endorse me and is going to write in Brian Kemp's name. Well, I don't want her endorsement and I don't want his. They're the ones who got Fannie Willis and her boyfriend all jazzed up and ready to go. He could have ended that travesty with a phone call, but he doesn't want to end it because he's a bad guy. Now, you know what that post on Truth Social is going to do. That post on Truth Social is going to activate the crazies here in the state of Georgia, and they are going to go after Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger. And I love this for them. Anywho, Brian Kemp did respond to Donald Trump's Truth Social post. I also got this from polyalert.com. My focus is on winning this November and saving our country from Kamala Harris and the Democrats, not engaging in petty personal assaults, attacking fellow Republicans, or dwelling on the past. You should do the same, Mr. President, and leave my family out of it. And here's just a reminder of what Brian Kemp is focusing on in trying to make sure the state of Georgia goes to Donald Trump. He and Brad Raffensperger implemented a website that went live on Monday. After going live immediately, all of the personal information for Georgia voters was public for everyone to see by way of this website. Names, addresses, county where they vote, last four of the social, their full driver's license number, and their date of birth. All of that was public on this website, and it was public for an hour. So anybody who went and perused over on that website for an hour was able to screenshot this information, download this information, however they chose to get it. And then with that particular personal information, they then could go over to the new website that they implemented, input that information, and then cancel any of those Georgia voters, cancel their voter registration. That's what Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp are doing in this state to make sure that Donald Trump wins. The same Donald Trump that is calling them out on Truth Social and putting them in harm's way. And that website is in addition to all of the other shenanigans that Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger have put into place to disenfranchise voters here in the state of Georgia. So hear me when I say Donald Trump calling them out the way that he did over on Truth Social, which will incite the racists, the violent racists in this country. Him doing that, it ain't right, but I ain't mad at it.